There is a moment that arrives in every deep and meaningful connection, where the surface of things begins to tremble. It is not a dramatic trembling, not the kind that announces itself with thunder or visible cracks. It is subtle, almost imperceptible, like the first movement of tectonic plates deep beneath the ocean floor, miles below where anyone can see or feel or measure. You might notice it in the way a certain silence settles between you and your person at unexpected times. You might feel it in the almost invisible shift in their posture, when a particular topic grazes the edges of your conversation. Something beneath the beautiful architecture of what you have built together is stirring, and your soul, which is far more perceptive than your rational mind will ever be, already knows this. That is why you are here. That is why this message found you. Take a long, slow breath. Let the noise of the world, the relentless hum of obligations and distractions, and the thousand small demands that pull at your attention, every waking hour, fall away for just this moment. You do not need to be anywhere else right now. You do not need to perform or manage or strategize. You only need to be still, and receive what the universe has been trying to deliver to your doorstep, for longer than you realize. You have been carrying something heavy, not the ordinary heaviness of a busy life, not the fatigue of work or the friction of circumstance, but something older and more intimate than that. It lives in your chest, in that quiet space just beneath the sternum, a weight that has no clean name and no simple origin. You feel it most acutely in those unguarded moments with the one you love, when you look at them across a room, or in the middle of an ordinary evening, and feel simultaneously the most profound sense of rightness, and a whisper of something you cannot quite locate or define. You feel chosen by something larger than yourself. You feel the particular warmth of two souls that were genuinely meant to find each other. And underneath that warmth, almost hidden by it, you feel that static, that low hum of an unresolved frequency that your heart cannot ignore, no matter how hard you try to tune it out. You are not imagining it. Your instincts are not betraying you. What you are sensing is real, and it is important. And the heavens are extending a hand of guidance to you right now. Because what is coming requires you to be prepared, requires you to be grounded in a level of spiritual understanding and emotional maturity that most people never access until it is too late. Here is the truth, dear soul, delivered to you with love and with urgency in equal measure. Your soulmate is holding a secret. Not the small, harmless variety of secret that most people carry, the kind that lives in the shallow water, and causes no real damage. This is the kind of secret that has been stored in the deepest chambers of their being, for a very long time, pressed down under layers of transformation and shame, and desperate hope, that it would simply never need to see the light of day. Every morning they open their eyes beside you, or move through their day, with thoughts of you anchoring them. They carry this secret like a stone in their pocket. Every moment of genuine intimacy you share, every time your connection deepens and the space between your souls grows smaller, that stone gets heavier, it presses harder, the silence around it becomes more fragile, more brittle, more likely to crack under the growing weight of everything that is unspoken. Your soulmate is terrified of you, not of who you are to them in this present moment, not of the relationship you are building, or the love that flows between you. They are terrified of what you would do, of who you would become in their eyes, and who they would become in yours. If you ever discovered the person they used to be, before they found their way to you. Before the evolution, before the reckoning, before the slow and painful metamorphosis that remade them into the companion standing before you today. The person whose gentleness moves you, whose presence steadies you, whose love feels like the answer to a question your soul has been asking your whole life. To understand the full weight of this, to genuinely comprehend the cosmic architecture of what is happening in your dynamic right now, you have to be willing to look backward. You have to turn and face the landscape of your own history with honest, unflinching eyes. This is not comfortable work. It requires a particular kind of courage, the courage to stop running long enough to understand exactly what you have been running from and why. Think about the specific texture of your deepest wounds. Not the surface hurts, not the ones that healed cleanly and left no lasting mark, but the wounds that shaped you, that informed every major decision you made, about who to let close and who to keep at a distance, about what love was supposed to look like, and what it was supposed to feel like, about what you were willing to endure, and where your absolute limits lived. These wounds came from somewhere specific. They came from people and experiences that introduced you to particular flavors of pain, betrayal perhaps, the kind that rewires your ability to trust, or chaos, the relentless, destabilizing energy of someone who could never be counted on, who kept you permanently off balance, who made safety feel like a foreign country you could visit, but never inhabit, or perhaps it was something else, a particular archetype of person that showed you the cruelest face of human nature, and left you determined, absolutely resolved at the level of your bones, to never let that kind of energy near you again. You built your walls with intention and with care. You designed them specifically to keep out the thing that broke you. You developed a sharp, almost preternatural ability to recognize the warning signs, to detect the early signals of the kind of person who had once devastated you, and to remove yourself from their orbit before real damage could be done. You refined yourself. You healed yourself, as much as healing is possible, while still in the midst of a life being lived. You grew into a person who understood their own worth, who refused to accept less than what they deserved, who moved through the world with a clearer sense of their own non-negotiables. And then you met them. And everything your internal alarm system had been calibrated to detect was simply absent. There were no warning signs. There was no familiar static of danger. There was only warmth and recognition and the overwhelming, impossible to rationalize sensation of coming home. You looked at them and thought, somewhere beneath conscious thought, that you had finally outrun the past, that the universe was rewarding your work, your healing, your growth, by delivering you someone who represented none of your old wounds, and all of your deepest longings. What you could not see then, and what the universe is illuminating for you now, is that you were only seeing half of the picture. You were seeing who they are, which is real and true and beautiful, and not to be minimized. But you were not seeing who they were. You were not seeing the chapter of their story that predates your arrival in their life. The chapter they keep locked away, with such disciplined effort, that you have never even glimpsed its cover. In another time, in another context, involving people whose lives have never crossed paths with yours, your soulmate was a different kind of person. They were not the gentle, careful, devoted partner you know. They were not the person who looks at you with that particular combination of love and reverence that makes your soul feel seen in a way nothing else ever has. Before they evolved, before the universe put them through the specific crucible, designed to burn away everything that needed to go, they lived in a way that would give you pause. They operated from a place of unconsciousness, of unhealed wounds expressed outward, of patterns and behaviors that caused real damage to real people. They were, in the language of your own internal history, the personification of what you spent years and miles and tears running away from. Not because they were evil, not because their soul was corrupted beyond repair, but because they were broken in a way they did not yet know how to acknowledge, let alone address, let alone transcend. The universe does not traffic in coincidence. Every element of this story has been arranged with a precision and an intentionality that the rational mind cannot fully absorb. The fact that your soulmate's former self maps so precisely onto the very thing you feared most is not an accident, is not a cruel joke, is not a sign that you have stumbled into a trap disguised as a blessing. It is the signature of a divine intelligence at work, orchestrating something so intricate and so purposeful that it can only be understood through the lens of the soul, rather than the lens of the mind. Here is what that orchestration is doing. It is offering you something that cannot be accessed any other way. It is offering your deepest wound the opportunity to fully close, not the surface closure of simply moving far enough away from the source of pain that it stops actively hurting, but real, final, bone-deep closure, the kind that comes from looking directly at the thing you feared and discovering that it no longer has power over you, the kind that comes from choosing love in the face of the information that would have once sent you running. When you encounter the truth of who your soulmate used to be, and choose to remain, choose to hold them in the wholeness of their journey rather than condemning them for the darkness of a chapter they have already finished writing. You will not just be saving your relationship, you will be completing something in yourself that has needed completion for a very long time. And for them, the gift is equally profound. They have been waiting, in the most terrified corner of their heart, for someone to know the worst of them, and love them anyway. Not the performative worst, not the minor flaws and endearing imperfections that people reveal easily in relationships, but the actual worst, the chapter they are most ashamed of, the version of themselves they would erase, if the laws of time permitted it. They have loved you with a particular ferocity, precisely because some part of them has always known that you were the one who could, if given the chance, if offered the truth, look at the full scope of their history and still choose them. Your love has always felt to them like the possibility of genuine absolution, but the fear that you would instead confirm their deepest shame, that you would look at their past and see only the predator or the deceiver or the runner, and forget entirely the person they have become, has kept them sealed in silence. Watch them carefully now, with this new understanding held gently in your awareness. Notice the almost imperceptible way they seem to brace themselves when you speak about people who have wronged you, especially when you speak with the particular heat that old wounds generate. Notice how they go still, how something behind their eyes shifts, how they seem to be simultaneously present with you, in the conversation and elsewhere, somewhere internal and private and shadowed. You may have read this as a lack of empathy, as an emotional distance that occasionally troubled you. It is not that, it is recognition. It is the particular, excruciating sensation of hearing your own past articulated in the words of the person you love most, described not as a chapter in an ongoing story of transformation, but as an unforgivable characteristic of an irredeemable person. They love you with a completeness that frightens them. The depth of what they feel for you is, in its own way, the most vulnerable they have ever been, because they have never had this much to lose. Every previous relationship existed in the comfort of a certain unconsciousness. They were not yet the person they are now. They were not yet capable of loving at this depth, or understanding themselves at this level. This is their first experience of loving someone, while fully awake, and the wakefulness that allows them to love you purely is the same wakefulness that their secrets are bearable to carry. They can no longer hide from themselves. They can no longer pretend that the past simply does not exist, or does not matter. They know it matters. They know you deserve the truth, and they know they cannot give it to you, because they cannot survive the possibility of what might happen if they do. Every day this continues. The energetic cost of the secret grows, not just for them, but for the space between you. Secrets are not neutral. They do not simply sit quietly in their designated corner, content to stay contained. They leak, they exert pressure, they alter the atmospheric conditions of a relationship in ways that are impossible to trace back to their source without the right information. The moments where things between you feel slightly off, where the connection that is usually so fluid and so natural encounters unexpected resistance, where one or both of you pulls back without entirely understanding why. Those moments are not random. They are the secret making itself felt, the unspoken truth pushing against the walls of its containment. If this truth surfaces through someone else, if it reaches you through a mutual acquaintance, or an unexpected encounter with someone from your soulmate's past, or if it erupts in the middle of a conflict, when defenses are down, and the most damaging words find their way to the surface, the fallout will be severe, not because the content of the truth is insurmountable, it is not. You are more capable of holding complexity and extending grace than you currently know. The fallout would be severe, because of the conditions under which the truth arrived, because it came wrapped in betrayal, rather than vulnerability, because the story you would have to integrate would include not just your soulmate's past, but their prolonged choice to keep it from you. And that choice would feel like evidence that the person standing before you is not who you thought they were. The ego would respond with the full force of its self-protective instincts. The old wounds would flare, recognizing a familiar pattern, the walls would go up, and what could have been a moment of profound union, a sacred crossing into deeper truth with each other, would instead become the beginning of an unraveling. This is why the universe is speaking to you now. This is why this message exists, and why it found you in this particular moment of your life. You are being given something extraordinarily rare. The opportunity to shape the conditions under which the truth arrives. You cannot force the conversation before your soulmate is ready. You cannot manufacture the specific moment of their disclosure, or control the words they choose, or the order in which the pieces fall. What you can do, and what you are being invited to do with great intentionality, is prepare the soil. Think about what it would mean to your soulmate to exist in a relationship where forgiveness is not merely a concept discussed in the abstract, but a lived, breathing, demonstrated reality. Think about what it would do to the grip of their fear if they consistently witnessed you, responding to stories of human failing and transformation, not with judgment and contempt, but with curiosity and compassion. Think about how the interior landscape of your dynamic would shift if you began, in both subtle and direct ways, to make clear that your love for them is rooted in who they are at the level of the soul, rather than in a pristine and unblemished record of behavior. You do not need to announce this project. You do not need to sit them down and explain that you know something is coming, and you are preparing yourself for it. The work is quieter and more organic than that. It lives in the way you speak about people who have made terrible mistakes and found their way to better choices. It lives in the grace you extend to yourself when you fall short of your own standards. It lives in the moments where you choose curiosity over judgment, where you reach toward understanding rather than retreating into condemnation. These are not performances for your soulmate's benefit. These are the genuine expressions of a soul operating at its highest capacity, and they will create a field of safety around your connection that will change what feels possible for both of you. When the truth does come, and it will come, because the universe will ensure it does, because secrets of this magnitude cannot remain indefinitely sealed against the natural pressure of an evolving, deepening relationship, you will be tested in a way you have never been tested before. In that moment, you will be required to hold two realities simultaneously. You will be standing in the present, looking at the person you know and love, the person who has shown up for you with consistency and care, the person whose specific way of seeing you makes you feel more yourself than you have ever felt. And you will simultaneously be confronted with a ghost from a past that has nothing to do with you, a version of them that no longer exists, a chapter that has been closed and in many ways atoned for, though atonement is never a clean or linear process. The ego will want to collapse these two realities into one. It will want to say that the ghost is the truth, and the person before you is the illusion. It will want to resurrect every wall you ever built, and every rule you ever made about the kinds of people you refuse to let near you. It will present the information as confirmation of your worst fears, rather than as evidence of the most profound kind of human transformation. Your work, the work that this message is calling you toward right now before the moment arrives, is to develop the spiritual and emotional musculature to resist that collapse, to hold the complexity, to understand that a person can have been one thing and become another thing, genuinely and completely, and that witnessing someone's evolution does not require you to excuse or minimize what came before. People change. This is one of the most radical and countercultural things. A soul can truly believe in this era of permanent records and instant judgment, where every version of a person is preserved and accessible, and held against them indefinitely. Genuine transformation is real. It is hard-won, and often wrenchingly painful, carved out of experiences of consequence and loss, and the particular clarity that arrives only when someone has reached the absolute bottom of the self they no longer want to be. Your soulmate earned who they are now. They did not drift gently from darkness into light. They were pulled through a fire of their own making, and they emerged from it as someone capable of the love they now offer you. A love that you have recognized as unlike anything you have experienced before, because it is. It is the love of someone who has been remade. The universe did not bring you together to punish you, by placing you in the arms of your greatest fear. The universe brought you together because you are both the answer to each other's deepest question. You have been asking whether the thing that broke you in the past defines what love will always cost you. Your soulmate is the living, breathing, daily proof that it does not. That the universe can take the very archetype of your wound and transform it into the architecture of your healing. and they have been asking whether someone can know the fullness of who they were, and still choose to see the fullness of who they have become. You are the only person on earth who can answer that question for them, in a way that will finally set them free. This is the sacred contract beneath your union. This is what the heavens orchestrated when your steps were aligned across time and space. Not a love story free of shadows, not a connection that bypasses the difficult terrain of human history and the complexity of changed souls, but something far more meaningful than that. A love story that goes directly through the shadows, that looks at them clearly, and does not flinch, that chooses the present person over the ghost of the past, with full information and full awareness. A love story that proves once and for all that redemption is real, and that the things that once broke you do not have to determine the shape of what you are allowed to receive. Begin now. Not with grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but with the quiet, consistent work of becoming the kind of presence in their life that makes the truth feel survivable. Speak about transformation, the way someone speaks about something they genuinely believe in. Extend compassion in the directions where you have previously only extended judgment, beginning with yourself. Let them see, in the ordinary moments that make up a shared life, that your love is large enough to hold complexity, and patient enough to honor the long arc of a soul's journey. The clock is moving, and the energy is building, and the moment of truth is approaching with the quiet inevitability of a tide that cannot be stopped. But tides are not only forces of erosion. They also bring things in. They carry toward shore what the deep waters have been holding. What is coming toward you is not destruction wearing the disguise of revelation. It is the final piece of a puzzle that, once placed, will complete the picture of a love that was always meant to be whole. Hold steady, dear soul. Wrap yourself in discernment and compassion in equal measure. Remember who you are, and how far you have come, and the profound capacity for grace that lives inside you, waiting for exactly this moment to be called forward. You have the power, right now, before anything else shifts, to ensure that what is coming does not break what you have built, but instead reveals the true depth of its foundation. The universe is watching. Your soulmate is hoping, and somewhere in the truest part of yourself, the part that knew before you knew, the part that recognized them, before your mind could catch up with what your soul already understood, you already know that you are ready for this. You already know that you are capable of exactly the love this moment requires. Trust that. Step into it, and let the healing begin.